Magnificat was required every week. It could be sung simply as a chorale for very low Sundays. Bach also seems to have used other people's Magnificats regularly. And in fact, he only wrote one basic one himself, although it's in two different versions, E-flat and D major. The E-flat one was written almost certainly for a Marian devotional visitation feast quite soon after Bach arrived in Leipzig in 1723. But more importantly, it was used for Christmas Day that year, and it was absolutely clear that Bach was trying to impress his congregation, his new employers, partly through the pairing of it with Cantata 63 that Sunday, which has the largest number of trumpets that Bach ever used in a performance. And it also involves the Christmas Laudes, the 4 extra interpolations that go between movements in the Magnificat that Bach appended at the end of the manuscript. So you don't have to have them every time the Magnificat is performed. You can insert them when it's a particular Christmas celebration. A couple of years ago, we recorded the John Passion of Bach in the context it was original Vesper liturgy. The Magnificat plays a part in exactly the same liturgy as that, and one of the things that I was very interested in exploring with this recording is to see whether a completely different character could be evoked in a liturgy that's essentially the same shape, but with very different contents, now really celebratory. And I think it does show that the liturgy both paces out Bach's pieces and sort of shows them in a larger context, but also allows for considerable variety of mood and in this case, celebration. So essentially, as in the Roman liturgy, one would have the Magnificat as the sort of climax. In what used to happen, and still does happen in the Roman liturgies, is that you would have psalms with interpolations in the first part of the liturgy and then the Magnificat in the later. In the Lutheran tradition, though, this was changed, by which you would have some sort of musical piece in the first part of the liturgy, then the sermon, which is the most important thing for many people in the Lutheran confession, and then the Magnificat after that, so that you essentially have a symmetrical structure to the service with congregational chorales on either side, so that's giving it in a broader symmetry, a sort of the bread of the service sandwich would be the congregational chorales, and the protein would be the sermon in the middle, and Bach sections would be the other types of fillings you choose according to the day. So this is quite interesting because it does allow the service both to integrate these fantastic pieces of music into the larger context, but it also shows them off very well climactically. You hear Cantata 63 and think, gosh, this is one of the most celebratory pieces one could think of for a Christmas Day ceremony. And then you have the Magnificat, which is even more spectacular in many respects, integrated on Christmas Day with these much lighter carol-like pieces. So it's a very interesting combination and a very interesting rhythm that's given to Bach's music by trying to consider how it would have fitted into the original liturgy. Bach was clearly keen to show off his ability throughout his first year at Leipzig, and it's very clear from this repertory here, a very spectacular cantata, absolutely wonderful one from the Weimar years, and then the fairly newly composed Magnificat with its wonderful trumpet parts, which seem to herald the B minor Mass, for instance. So Bach at his very best. And I think he did have something to prove, because we do have to remember that he was the third choice for the cantor job in Leipzig. This is partly because of the internal politicking of the council members. It wasn't because everybody necessarily thought that Telemann and Graupner were better, although they probably did, because Telemann was, of course, one of the major operatic composers of the time, and it was somebody who had a role in the larger world of music that they were looking for. So, in other words, to make Leipzig as a town that much more illustrious.